Hiya, I hope you are all doing well and that you are having a lovely start to your week. I'm just here with another weekly video diary this week, so I'm making these videos for the University of Warwick, basically keeping you updated on my experience kind of studying and graduating and finishing university under lockdown and in the current situation. So if you wanted to watch any more videos about what my experience has been like, then they are all on my channel. But today this is a bit of a special video for me because it is about how the fact that my dissertation is finally done, submitted, I can stop thinking about it now, which is really exciting. So I kind of thought I would focus on that for this week's video, and also kind of maybe give you a few little like tips and stuff about what I found quite helpful when I was doing my dissertation and how I got it done. But yeah, in terms of my actual dissertation, that is now finished. And I printed it out, even though there was absolutely no need to print it out, just so I could get a nice picture with it. So my dissertation was, well, my title of my dissertation was Brexit and Bigotry, the Co-Constitution of Migrant and National Identity during the Brexit referendum campaign. So this was a dissertation for, well, I'm part of the Politics and International Studies department at the University of Warwick, so that was what department my dissertation was for. So yeah, it was basically all about Brexit and looking at the constitution and formation of identity through the use of discourse. So basically looking at discourse within the British press and looking at how they constituted the migrant identity and the national identity. Importantly, how this constitution of identity was done very antithetically. So they were represented as being opposing in identity. And yeah, so for that I was looking at the publications of The Sun and the Daily Mail, because as you may know, they had very strong opinions regarding Brexit and the identity and threat of migration that came with being a part of the EU. So basically just looking at their discourse and using post-structuralism theory, so that's a theory of international relations that I learnt about during my course, and applying that and its discourse analysis to the discourse of these publications. And basically the goal of it, and my kind of research question, was all about how this could be deconstructed and how we could kind of move past this binary thinking and this opposition of identities that was quite overtly discriminative and racist towards the migrant identity. So yeah, basically that was what my dissertation was about, and it's quite the relief to have that finally done and all submitted. It was definitely like a lengthy process. We had to decide the title in the 5th week of our first term, which was a very long time ago now. So ever since then kind of been on and off kind of working on it, getting the planning done, getting the reading done, and then over the past couple of months getting it done and written and ready to submit. But yeah, it's definitely something that I would recommend doing. Personally, I've really actually enjoyed doing a dissertation. I think it's an amazing opportunity to do some independent work and really kind of show what you've learned, and you know, you're probably going to be doing it on something that you personally find interesting, and the kind of part of your course that you want to learn more about, or that, you know, has really kind of resonated with you the most, or the one that you're the part of the course that you're most interested in is what you can do it on, and you can do it on pretty much anything. So I feel like it's a really good opportunity to kind of do your own independent learning and really kind of further your own personal interest areas. So that's kind of why I chose to do a dissertation. I always wanted to do a dissertation. I've always quite liked the idea of coming out of uni and being able to kind of speak about what I did my dissertation on. I mean, I'm sure it probably isn't going to be that relevant in years to come, but just the idea that I've kind of got one big piece of work to show for my time at university, I think that's quite appealing to me, and just something to talk about in interviews and things like that. So I always wanted to do it, and it's definitely, you know, the independent learning part of it is kind of a little bit demanding, and you have to definitely kind of, I mean, it's on you to stay focused and to get the work done. So you know, at times it can be a little bit difficult to stay focused, and for me I found it really hard doing the same thing for so long and focusing on the same thing. But yeah, it was definitely overall quite a good experience, and I really enjoyed my topic and just kind of getting into that, and yeah, it was very enjoyable. So in kind of updates for these videos, that's kind of where I'm at now. I've now finished my dissertation, and in a couple of weeks, on the 3rd of June, I've got 2 exam replacements due in for my political theory module and my critical security studies module. So I have a 4,000 word and a 2,000 word essay that are due in on the 3rd of June. So it's a little bit of a quick turnaround getting those ones done now, so I'll be focusing on that, but after that I am completely done, which is really exciting. But yeah, I have had like a day or so kind of just relaxing after the dissertation was submitted, and just kind of, you know, I feel like it's really hard to go from one essay to another, especially when they're like, well, whether they're on similar or different things, I feel like it's really hard to kind of like move your, like, go from one to the other basically. I find it quite difficult, so I've given myself like a day and a half sort of break before starting the essay for critical security studies, which I'm doing on kind of biopolitics theory and critical biopolitics and its effect on security dynamics, and basically enhancing our knowledge of the critical security studies field. So that's kind of what I've been working on now, but there will be more updates on kind of how I'm finding the exam replacements to come. But yeah, going back to dissertation, I thought I would just include a couple of tips on how to get your dissertation done. I can't necessarily say how to do a good dissertation because I obviously have not received a mark back and I'm not sure if mine is good or not yet, but just some tips that kind of like helped me stay organised and basically just get my dissertation done. So my first tip for getting your dissertation done would be to plan your time really efficiently, and also just do a lot of planning basically for your dissertation. So when you come around to write it, you've got all of the kind of information and bits that you need right there in front of you, and you don't need to go looking for them. The idea is kind of that you have all of that information and you've done all the research beforehand, in a way that you might not bother to do if you were doing a slightly shorter essay or something that maybe didn't count for quite as much. So yeah, for me planning was really important, especially as I was gathering my kind of sample data from newspapers. So I was using the LexisNexis database, which basically allows you to go back and look at old newspapers and stuff, to find articles from the Sun and the Daily Mail that spoke specifically about migrants, kind of constituted their identities, maybe spoke about the national identity, and basically just putting together kind of evidence, not evidence, but content to analyse using the post-structuralist theory, kind of getting out good bits of discourse that I could analyse with that. So basically just going through, they have a bit where you can kind of search for your terms and stuff, so looking for things like threat in terms of migrants, and civilization versus like barbarity in terms of the kind of national to migrant identity comparison. So basically just searching those out, because a lot of the analysis kind of is the framework of your dissertation, is kind of the point of it. So getting that done early is definitely really helpful, and I do wish that I had done a little bit more of the analysis part and the finding of like the newspaper articles and stuff before I'd focused too much on kind of writing the conceptual framework or literature review for my dissertation, because it definitely would have helped me. I had to kind of go back and reframe a lot of stuff after I'd done the analysis, so it probably would have been helpful to kind of maybe know where I was going with it a little bit more before I started doing all the other stuff. But yeah, in general I think just planning, really planning your time, so making sure you know how long you've got to do each section. So typically your dissertation will be broken into, and this is just kind of like a rough structure, so an introduction, a literature review, a methodology, analysis, discussion and conclusion. So kind of designating time to do each, and planning your time around those is probably really helpful in ensuring you spend the right amount of time on each section, and that each section is kind of as to a good of a standard as the rest of your dissertation basically. My second piece of advice would definitely be to just pick something that you are really interested in, because you are going to be spending an awful lot of time looking at the same thing for a lot of your final year of university. So I suppose picking something that you are genuinely really interested in, if you do that, you're not going to get so bored of it, you're not going to lose interest, and you're not going to lose motivation as much. So just choosing something that genuinely you are really interested in, maybe something that you've always had an interest in, or something that you really, really want to learn about, I would say would be really important. And I think it also comes across in your writing how interested you are about the topic, and you know, the more interested you are, the better work you will probably produce. So that would definitely be a piece of advice from me. Another piece of advice would be to not leave a lot to the last minute. So that kind of comes into planning your time, but it's quite important not to forget about all the little things that you need to do with a dissertation. So it's not quite like a normal essay in the fact that you need a page of contents, so like the contents of all your chapters or your subtitles, things like that. And you also need to have a page for your abstract and your acknowledgements, and I had to have a list of abbreviations, which is quite common in politics. So kind of This takes a lot more time than what you think it will, so definitely making sure that you do leave yourself enough time to do that, and maybe do some of it along the way. In terms of doing things along the way, keep on top of your referencing, because if you don't, you will leave yourself with an awful amount of to do at the end. And I must admit, I am bad for this. Normally in essays, I will often get to the end and I am searching for the sources that I've used throughout, you know, my work, and it always ends up taking a really long time. But because I'd often made that mistake, I was very aware of the fact that I could not let that happen for my dissertation, because it's just too big of a piece of work. Basically keeping organised with your references and stuff is really, really important. So I kind of always had a list of any references that I was using on a separate document, and then I also had separate documents for references for each of my sections. So then if I went and cut down something or took away a reference, I knew that it would be in the reference list for that specific chapter, rather than having one long reference list. I found that a lot easier to kind of manage and keep on top of personally. Another thing I would say is probably to just make sure that all of your sections are kind of well structured but flowing into each other. So it's quite easy to approach your dissertation like multiple different essays, because it's so easily broken up into the different chapters. So for example, your literature review and your methodology, you know, you kind of do them separately, but it's also really important that you keep a flow throughout your whole dissertation, and that it all comes together, and you know, there's a very clear route through it that is answering your research question. So basically just keeping it well framed and structured, so that you're not kind of going off on tangents or losing the point of your dissertation, but making sure that there is kind of a route and flow through your dissertation would definitely be something that I would recommend like keeping an eye on as you go along also. I would also, in terms of not leaving things to the last minute, say to remember that when you are going to be submitting your dissertation, you are probably also going to have a lot of other work that you need to be doing as well. So you might think, oh great, I've still got 3 months, but realistically, if you've got exams and other essays that are due in at the same time, that is not a few months that you have just for your dissertation. And this was a mistake that I kind of fell into, but not too badly. So I kind of, you know, it worked out all right in the end. But basically just remembering that it's not going to be the only thing that you have to do. So kind of getting it out of the way and doing a lot of the work at the beginning will be really helpful when it comes around to having so many other things. I mean, you're in your 3rd year, you've got a lot of other exams, essays and bits coming up near the end. So kind of your dissertation is something that you can focus on throughout the year, and something that you can almost get out of the way and do a lot of the core work earlier on, so that then you do not have that as well as all the other things to do at the end, which is definitely the right way to go about things, I think. I would also recommend having a look at kind of other people's dissertations and past ones. You can find quite a lot of them online. I think to start off with, I really wasn't sure how to write a dissertation in terms of like how it was different from a normal essay that we've been doing over the past few years. So kind of reading other dissertations, seeing how they kind of styled it and structured it, gave me kind of inspiration for how I wanted to do my own. And now every dissertation is a little bit different, and you'll find your own style and kind of way of doing it, but just getting a general idea for how a dissertation is typically done and what the chapters include mainly, kind of just looking at what you should be including in each section of your dissertation. And also just generally reading through academic writing will potentially help you kind of develop your own academic voice throughout your dissertation. But yeah, those were just a few of my kind of like tips and kind of things I kind of wish I could have told myself before I started my dissertation. But yeah, basically just a few little things to maybe keep in mind if you are planning on doing a dissertation or are doing one at the moment. And also just kind of an update on where I am at the moment and the fact that that is all done, and I will now be moving on to my exam replacement assessments. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed the video and that it was potentially a little bit helpful for a few of you. But yeah, I hope you are doing well and staying healthy and well. But yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.